right. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I'm Dr. Sean Stein-Smith, the host of the NJCPA TechTalk podcast, brought to you by the Emerging Technologies Interest Group. And we're back today, episode 3, and I have an awesome, well-rounded, and really expert guest here on the podcast to really educate us, talk about his experience building out a firm for the future. But before we get into that, just a quick background about me, your host. I'm Dr. Sean Stein-Smith, in case any of you are still unaccustomed to me or you haven't met me prior to our conversation here. I do quite a bit of work, blockchain, crypto, RPA, anything linked to IT, developments, accounting, finance, all the rest. I do a lot of writing, research, podcasting, all the rest. And so with all of that out of the way, I'm honored to introduce our guest here for today, Garrett Wagner, who has a bit of an outdated headshot here because his hair is now actually, can't see it, down to his waist. And he's the founder and CEO of C3 Evolution Group. He's an accounting futurist, and most importantly, he's an honorary member of Canada. Garrett, welcome to the podcast.
Dr. Sean, thanks for having me. You know, I'm always proud to be an honorary Canadian. I'm sure it comes with privileges and benefits and all those things. It helps me be future ready as well. But no, Dr. Sean, happy to be here, chat with you on what it takes to kind of get future ready in the accounting industry, because it's such an important topic and one that gets me pretty excited to be involved in the industry.
Absolutely right. And so with all of that, I do want to really pick your brain here, Garrett. How did you actually transition, right, from being a CPA to becoming a entrepreneurial CPA?
You know, Dr. Sean, a big part of that is realizing, I don't remember what it was, at some point in the past, of just, I was spending all my time just being backwards looking with my clients and not helping them do things that really mattered to them. And I can see that. You try and talk to your clients, and you probably felt this about, taxes or their audit report, and their eyes glaze over and they're really not that interested in it. And a lot of us, and myself included, like, we get into this, we want to help small business owners out to be successful. Like, we so much want to help them, but we're focused on all this backward looking stuff. These audits, these tax returns didn't matter, didn't resonate to them. Okay, what did resonate? Anything that's looking forward looking, how to help them grow their business. What's the actual problem they're faced today that's driving them crazy and preventing them from making the widget, being the best fitness coach ever, selling their product, whatever it is? That's what they need help with. And we didn't have the skills that we needed to help them do that. We had the skills looking in the past, not looking into the future. So I spent a lot of time thinking through, what are those skills we would need to do that? What are they? What are they doing in other industries? Pulling them together in this whole concept of becoming an entrepreneurial CPA. So you can help your clients be successful and be a future ready person in the profession with a slight dab. Maybe there's 2% Canadian just, mixed in there on the back end, Dr. Sean, just
Absolutely.
For you.
Absolutely. And so, it's a very interesting point there, Garrett, right? That all of us are educated and trained to analyze the income statement, the balance sheet, cash flow, taxes, all the rest. But to your point, all of that is in the past. It already happened. And so the true sort of add-on in terms of any sort of value is to help our external clients understand how they're operating now and then how to make better business choices going forward. So in terms of trying to sort of quantify what knowledge, what information that any folks tuning in here right now have to improve, have to polish up to have that transition or that pivot work on their end, could you sort of hone it down to like the top 2 or the top 3?
Yeah, a big part of this shift is realizing that the technical skills, audit, tax knowledge are important, but they're not the end all and be all. I remember for myself, growing up in my career, working at different firms, a lot of times the partners would ask me, what am I doing CPE wise? It'll be, some leadership training and different like soft skills. They'd always kind of like scoff me like, oh, that's great. Like go for it, but you're wasting your time. Like, why don't you read more gap or tax stuff? That's completely broken. Like, we need that base foundational accounting and knowledge. But on top of that, we need all those important soft skills. How do you solve problems? How do you have vision? How do you motivate those you work with? How can you be flexible when you deal with difficult problems? How do you bring in those soft skills? Those are the critical skills that we need as we become forward-looking and not backward-looking. Those critical soft skills. That's the biggest piece. The second part is really shifting from, I'm going to do all of my learning in December, and it's all going to be CPE based. I need 40 hours. You know what it is. And I'm going to cram it in. I'm going to get a bunch of like 20-hour courses that are online self-study courses. And in 2 hours, I'm going to breeze through it. And I'm done. And I learned nothing.
What? That actually happens?
Totally.
I'm shocked.
You probably wrote some of those courses.
Yeah, well, could be.
Breeze through to the questions and shifting more like, listening to stuff like this, continuously learning throughout the year. That's going to make you successful. And I just wrote an article a couple months ago on the CPA Practice Advisor on that shift of learning from stagnant once a year to perpetual throughout the year.
And so the impact and the push of automation is obviously a topic and a trend that has been talked about quite a bit in accounting, audit, tax for the last 20 odd years. But honestly, right now in this post-COVID outlook, right, how is automation sort of pushing or pulling all of us forward, right, into this more forward-looking, future-ready outlook?
Automation, you've wrote a lot about RPAs, bots, whatever it is. It's really important. And the good thing with the cost for RPAs has come down exponentially. So no matter what size your firm is, you can get into some level of automation. And you got to start thinking about, okay, what is it that I do today as I go through my day that's very repetitive? And I'm doing it time and time again, whether that's client work or it's internal firm work. And then how can I start to automate that process? Because one of the challenges isn't just, okay, I want to go from being backwards looking to forward looking. It's, I don't have enough time in my day to be backwards looking. Now you want me to be forward looking. Where does that time come from? Okay, let's start to automate some of those pieces. And whether it's something as simple as using bank feeds in QuickBooks Online, or a simple bot or flow from Zapier or Microsoft, there's little things you can do every day. One of the simple things we do at the firm is when new work comes in, the project gets logged in by a bot, and then the client gets an acknowledgement email. Hey, Dr. Sean, thank you so much for bringing in your tax documents. Here's kind of the standard email. And while that sounds rather trivial, and a lot of us might say, well, you know what? I don't send them an email now and no one's complaining. I'm always amazed. About 30% of the time, even though it's an automated email, the client responds, and it's always almost the same thing. Thank you so much for letting me know you're working on my stuff. And it's amazing, that little touch, just a little like acknowledgement. Hey, I got your stuff. I'm on it. Even though it's perfectly clear it comes from a bot and not a human person, clients like that. It's those little touches, those little automations that you can do and start thinking through that. The second other point in bots, not to go off on a tangent, whenever I talk to firms about bots, they might get excited about it, where it always trips them up, and I talk about it time and time again. You have to have a standard process to automate. A bot cannot automate. Every person in the firm does something differently. A bot has to automate steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 the same way every time. And that's where a lot of firms get into trouble. They want to automate something and everybody does it differently. Well, now you got to make 15, 20, 30 bots, and that's not economical. It's economical to make one bot that does this one task, and you have to agree, it's the end of the day, there's only one way to lick an envelope. Keep it simple.
Well, I would hope so, right?
I am from, honorary Canadian. We might have a Canadian way.
True, yeah.
Hey, there's a great Dr. Seuss book, like it's about the butter battle, like one side of the wall, butter's toast, like on the top and the bottom. So you never know, like the little differences people get into. Maybe you in New Jersey have your own specific way you lick stamps. Me as a New Yorker,
what are those, Garrett? What are those?
Don't know.
No, and I just apologize here for the background noise. Those are my hounds, so I apologize for that. But
the keynote hounds with a plural. The man's got multiple dogs.
Exactly, multiple dogs here on site. And so to hone in on a earlier comment that you made, right? And a common sort of issue that I also see is that in order to automate and to go forward, it's almost equally as important to hone in, tidy up, polish up those sort of baseline processes, be it how to post AR, how to post cash to AR rather, because any bot, be it a basic bot or a more advanced RPA package, can only automate how the processes are outlined for it, right? And so I do think, to add on to your earlier uh, point there, Garrett, that in order to have bots and have automation work as advertised, the underlying processes have to be working first.
Absolutely. You can't automate a broken system. It's part of that process. Do you have a standard process to do whatever it is, whether it's posting cash receipts? And that's another great example, Dr. Sean. All firms deal with that. We get paid, right? We're a business.
Hopefully,
we
right?
Cannot survive. Yeah. Well, hopefully we get paid. At some point, money comes in the door.
Yeah.
That's a very structured routine process. It's going to be a check, a credit card payment, an ACH, or maybe a wire. Those all follow a rather routine process. Great. Automate that and set up a bot that says, you know what, when the money comes in, the bot posts that receipt into your time and billing system or into QuickBooks for your firm, updates your records, updates your receivables. Done. You don't need to pay a human being to do that. It's going to save a lot of time. Or you can even look into, there's some bots and automation that's already available from your vendors. Look into that, see what's out there. A big shift we all had to make last year with the COVID lockdown is being virtual, a lot more electronic signatures on the e-file forms for tax returns. A lot of firms just started with, hey, I'll use Adobe or DocuSign or something like that. That's not really truly IRS compliant. A lot of the vendors have amazing solutions that are IRS compliant, KB authentication, et cetera. But it's amazing how much it automates that process. Instead of before, okay, print the tax return PDF, print the electronic e-signature forms, make a copy of that e-signature forms, email it to the client with a standard letter, et cetera. The software, you hit export, it sends everything to the client automatically. It takes care of all of it, and the return's printed. It's amazing how much easier that little thing does to automate it. So it's some of the easy starts with automation can be tools from software providers already there. Get started with those first. Those are some nice easy wins you can have. They're already tried, tested, and successful.
Absolutely right. And to sort of pivot our conversation here, Garrett, can you tell us a bit about your firm, right? Sort of how it got started, some of the obstacles that you encountered, and then how you turned the firm into a truly forward-looking firm, trying to apply and to use some of these concepts, RPA, bots, all the rest.
Sure. I mean, I'm assuming we've got about 12 hours to get into that. We can go
absolutely.
Very detailed tax treaty, almost a very treaty, just step by step.
Absolutely.
But I'll attempt to condense that down. Essentially a couple of years ago, expanding what I do through C3 Evolution Group for providing innovative solutions to other CPA firms. I had the opportunity to acquire a CPA firm where I live, and I did that. It was a very traditional tax and accounting practice. And part of our work is turning that practice around itself and really focus. Just step one, what was the vision of that firm? Well, it had no vision. So now what's the vision? How do we act like the firm of tomorrow? How is everything we do representative of what the firm of tomorrow looks like? Always pushing ourselves to be better. Step two, technology, making sure we have the right technology in place, the foundational technology that's already there. Then moving on to automation with bots. And I can say the biggest thing with the bot automation push internally with the firm was, like a lot of firms, there was a lot of resistance at firm and confusion as to what bots were. But it's also one of the things that once they start to see it, once people see a bot in action, that first tax season, when we hit 415 and everyone in the firm was commenting this was the best 415 of their lives. Well, a big part of that was bots and the automation put into place. And that helped cement it so they could see, okay, like the light bulb went off. I see what's going on here. And then finally, people, providing people those entrepreneurial CPA skills, those soft skills they need to make this shift from just backward looking to forward looking. We really try to hammer in and focus on those three core principles. Now we can get a lot more detailed with it, but that was the big shift of making that vision, technology, people in the firm all aligned, looking to the future on the same page, and making sure everybody understood like the goal in their job and what they were doing. So it was a very different approach from a traditional CPA firm, but that's part of the changing landscape we're all living in, and kind of the future looking accounting firm. It's not just this grinding house of doing tax return preparation. It's not just an audit shop. It's not just a backward looking shop, a bunch of accountants. We can do exciting, amazing things for our clients, but we've got to be ready to make some change happen.
And, it almost strikes me that actually the hardest part of the whole process aren't the actual tools themselves, right? Aren't the automation tools, the bots, the RPA, all the rest. It's actually trying to convince basically the employees, the managers, staff, directors, partners, depending on the firm, that actually onboarding tools of this kind are going to help. And so how did you do that? Did you start the bot onboarding on a tiny area and then have that sort of be the evidence, or did you start on a certain aspect of the tax prep process or some other way?
Yeah, that's a great point. And one of the things I'll touch base on first is our clients push back way less than the people inside the firm.
Interesting.
That's always one of the big concerns. Well, my clients don't want to do this. Well, guess what? We live now in 2021 is when we recorded this. Your clients are used to doing things virtually. They're used to doing things online. They're completely happy doing that. When you tell them, hey, we're making the shift, would it be more streamlined, efficient, more environmentally friendly? We do things online, make it easier for you. Very, very few, very, very, very few push back. And that was part of it. Part of that internal firm transition was, listen, if we changed our process for 1,000 clients and we had 3 that complained, guess what? Our objection rate is less than 1%. So let's move on and call it a win. Yeah. So Dr. Sean, that was part of it, is kind of like pointing that out. Listen, we made this change. Yes, these 3 clients got upset. Maybe this client left because of this change. Well, guess what? Out of 1,000 clients, our rejection rate is less than 1%. And it wasn't our biggest client. It was one of the smaller clients. We're call that a win all day long. Look how much time and resources we just saved. Let's move on. So we started with some small, simple bots to build those successes. That's what it takes. Don't try and do everything at once. Don't try and do something overwhelming. Pick something small, simple, and easy.
Yeah, no, and excellent points there. So obviously,
Why thank you, Dr. Shawnee. It's always good to know that, like, I'm hearing from you, Dr. Shawn, the expert, that I still got it after all these years. I'm getting older.
Still got it.
Every year.
I know.
Not as young as you. The Canadianness in me is not bringing me down.
Oh, geez, yeah, no, because I know that the two of us have been actually talking about this for since 2017 or 2016.
A long time, my friend. A long time.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while.
We were both younger there with much shorter hair.
Yeah, better looking too, probably. Now,
my boy, it sucks to get old. Although I feel like the Canadian life helps to, like, easier life. It helps you age a little bit better. Just something to think about.
Could be that. So obviously, your application of bots and automation, trying to overhaul the whole firm. I mean, it was probably a bit easier, I would hazard to guess, because you were the owner, right? The boss, CEO type person. What if you're a manager, senior manager person coming in at a directorish level, trying to sort of get a equivalent process underway? I mean, what are some of the ways to sort of broach this topic to your MD, to your partner, to your colleagues, to try to get that buy-in, even if you are not the top person?
I would look at the software you're already using and what automation tools it has. You might not call it a bot or RPA, but that's what it is. What automation tools your software has, they're not using. So case in point, almost every CPA firm of all sizes that does corporate tax return and maybe some auditing has some form of quote unquote engagement software for a corporate tax return or financial statements. And that software will link directly with the tax return. So you don't have to manually key in numbers from one software to the other. Now, it's simple, it's easy, it's amazing. Most firms don't do that. That can be a nice, easy one. It's not going to cost you more, and it's pretty easy to quantify. Well, the old way took me an hour and a half to put the return in. The new way takes me 10 minutes. Well, look, I did 5 of those. I saved this much time. Let's make that change. Look for the stuff that's already there. That way you don't have to invest. You don't have to try and get budgetary approval. Find stuff you have already that you're not utilizing. You've got that sunk cost of whatever that software is. Just start using it more.
Yeah. No, and I think that all of that really sort of brings our sort of training, education, costs, sort of items per hour mindset, and tries to bring in some of that sort of future looking, like, hey, listen, I can do more of this stuff if I bring in some of these future oriented tools. So all of that strikes me as a really solid place to start the conversation, even if you aren't coming to it with that CEO title.
Exactly.
And to try to wrap up our conversation, our conversation here today, Garrett, if there was any one tip, one sort of piece of advice, right, based on your backgrounds, trying to do this actually in the firm you own, or during 2021, COVID, post-COVID, what one piece of advice would you give?
One piece of advice. You got to boil it down.
One piece of advice, Garrett. One. Yeah.
One. I'm going to ramble on here as I think about this. Just
sure,
to kind of fill the time.
Absolutely. Play for time a little bit. Yeah.
This is what speakers like ourselves do, right, Dr. Sean? We sometimes ramble on to fill time. Is like, excellent question.
That's what I do constantly.
Let me figure out what I'm going to say next. I think then, with that, talking about this making change happen, especially with last year, with everything we saw, big thing we talk about is not being afraid to fail. Of saying it's okay. I'm going to try something different. I know at the first time, it might not be right. I'm going to try this bot, this RPA. I'm going to try and talk to the client about being forward-looking instead of backward-looking. I'm going to offer a different service. I'm going to price it differently. Whatever I'm going to do, that first time I'm going to do it, it's okay if it's not a home run success. If it's not perfect the first time. That's how life is. No one's perfect. What we do is we make incremental steps. We try something new. We learn, and we move forward. We do not try something new and say, wow, I want to be future looking. I talked to my first client. It was a train wreck. I'm going to go back to just doing tax returns. Okay. What worked about it? Mm-hmm. Hopefully something. What didn't work about it? Okay. Next client. I'm going to do this differently. When I talk about it, I'm going to say these 3 things instead of this. Don't be afraid to fail. We're accountants. We're very black and white. Yes, no, debits and credits. Don't be so black and white. Don't be afraid to fail, trying to be successful, trying to move to the future. Otherwise, you're failing by standing in place. So that's probably my one tip in that framework is don't be afraid to fail.
Excellent point there, Garrett. Because automation, customized services, being more forward-looking are traits and they are trends that are out there anyway in the marketplace, right? In every aspect of our current lives. And so it's really on us to try to learn and to then go back to figure out what worked, what didn't, do some A/B testing, and to try to sort of put together a plan and a map to help us and our firms move forward and evolve.
Exactly. I mean, that's what it's all about. None of us know what we're doing necessarily every day. We try something differently. Give it a try, learn from it, and proceed to get better every day.
All right, Garrett, thank you so much. And for everyone tuning in here, be sure to sign up for the NJCPA Tech Talk podcast in your favorite podcast app. We are on YouTube, youtube.com/NJCPA, and also watch online maybe at njcpa.org/Tech Talk. And for NJCPA members, of which I hope all of you are, also join the Emerging Technologies Interest Group at njcpa.org/groups. Garrett, thank you so much for coming on episode 3 of the NJCPA Tech Talk podcast.
Dr. Sean, always a pleasure. And way to nail that list there. Whew.
Right, trying to, man. Thank you.